All right, so Argentina 4, Brazil 1.
Whoa.
That doesn't really sound like a Clásico scoreline, does it?
No, not at all.
More like a demolition.
Yeah.
Welcome to the Deep Dive, where we take a look at the stories making waves. And today, that story is this absolutely stunning result.
Absolutely.
In the South American World Cup qualifiers, we've got a stack of insights for you today.
Okay.
Drawn mission today is to unpack this applauso, as the guys over at Mundo Maldini called it.
Okay.
This thrashing, and really understand why it happened, which players shone brightest, and what this might tell us about the bigger picture.
I love it.
And here's a kicker for you. Argentina did all of this without Lionel Messi on the pitch.
Wow.
Okay, so let's unpack exactly how this happened.
Yeah, well, I mean, right off the bat, just the sheer disbelief from the commentators and the strength of Argentina's statement. They didn't just say they won. They used terms like domination and even humiliation.
Really?
The 4-1 score, in their view, almost undersold Argentina's control. This wasn't just like, a tight victory. It was a statement.
A statement, yeah. And when you look back at the history, it gets even more significant because this is the first time that Brazil has ever conceded 4 goals in a South American World Cup qualifier.
Wow.
Ever.
Yeah.
And on top of that, Argentina now has 2 consecutive qualifying wins against Brazil, including that historic first ever loss for Brazil at home in the Americana.
It's amazing.
So, it really feels like under Scaloni, Argentina's not just competing, they're setting a whole new benchmark.
Yeah, and if we think about, what that means for the bigger picture, you see a potential shift in the South American football landscape, right? For so long, Brazil, in these qualifiers, particularly at home, they carried this air of almost invincibility.
Right.
And these consecutive losses capped off by such a decisive defeat suggest that aura might be fading. And Argentina is definitely capitalizing on that.
So, tactically speaking, how did they actually manage to dismantle Brazil this time?
Yeah.
So, according Argentina started with Martinez in goal.
Okay.
A familiar backline of Molina, Romero, Otamendi, and Tagliafico.
Right.
But the midfield is where it gets really interesting.
Yeah.
Almada McAllister, Paredes, Enzo Fernandez, and DePaul, all supporting Julián Álvarez up top.
Wow, so many players in the midfield.
A very congested midfield when you see
Yeah, very congested.
So what's really fascinating here, considering that Messi wasn't playing,
Right.
is how Argentina adapted.
Yeah.
Basically overloaded the midfield.
Yeah.
They had all those extra bodies in there, and they just managed to eat Brazil alive.
Yeah.
Their high press was incredibly effective.
Yeah.
It wasn't just pressing. It was this coordinated effort, real hunger to win the ball back and quickly in dangerous areas.
Yes.
How that midfield was structured. They pointed out how Paredes often dropped right in front of the central defenders, almost as a third center back at times, to provide extra cover.
Interesting.
While Enzo Fernandez took on a bit more of an advanced role with DePaul on the right and McAllister drifting out on the left.
Wow. Okay.
And the Argentine players themselves mentioned how they found each other very well out there.
Yeah.
Which, really speaks to that tactical understanding and cohesion that they have.
Absolutely.
You can see how that midfield density would make it just so difficult for Brazil to play through the middle.
Yeah, it would be a nightmare.
So it wasn't just about having the numbers.
Right.
It was about the quality of those players.
Right.
And their ability to execute that game plan so well and that midfield dominance then really paved the way for some outstanding individual performances. Let's start with Enzo Fernandez.
Yeah, he was great.
Clearly holds him in very high regard. Describing his versatility in midfield as a major asset, they call his game tremendous, and specifically highlighted that incisive pass that led to McAllister's goal.
Oh, yeah, that was a beautiful pass.
If you look at Argentina's breakdown, they also emphasized Enzo's slightly more advanced positioning when Argentina was pressing, which suggests that it was, a very deliberate tactic to utilize his energy and his passing range further up the field to disrupt Brazil's attempts to build from the back.
He was everywhere.
He really was. He was a real engine in that midfield.
Yeah.
Then you have Julián Álvarez, went so far as to say that he might be among the top 5 strikers in the world right now.
Wow, that's high praise.
That's very high praise. They lauded his goal, of course, but also his movement and tactical awareness, noting how he would sometimes drop a bit deeper to link up with that midfield.
Right.
And even caught the players celebrating Álvarez's goal with real enthusiasm in the dressing room.
Oh, that's great.
Which tells you a lot about his importance to that whole team dynamic.
For sure.
He's not just a goal scorer. He seems to be a real focal point
Yeah.
that brings a lot of their attacking play together.
Yeah, I agree.
to Tagliafico and Almada for their solid performances.
Okay.
Although they did suggest that Almeida might be the player to make way once Messi returns to the fold.
It makes sense.
And, of course, we can't overlook Giuliano Simeone's debut goal.
What a moment.
At a golazo.
Yeah.
And a real moment of consecration for him with the national team, especially after he got the start in that previous match against Uruguay.
Yeah.
Pointed out a really interesting little detail about Simeone's goal.
Okay.
This was his very first match ever against Brazil.
Wow.
And he managed to score something that his famous father, Diego Simeone,
Of course.
never achieved
I didn't realize that.
in his own very distinguished career representing Argentina.
That's a cool little piece of trivia.
Yeah, it's a wonderful piece of football history right there.
Yeah.
I know. A son achieving something his legendary father couldn't against their biggest rivals.
For sure.
Let's shift our focus to Brazil now.
Okay.
They really seem to be out of sorts.
Yeah.
This their starting 11 as Bento in goal, a defense of Wesley, Marquinhos, Murillo, and Arana.
Right.
Midfield, they went with Andre and Joe Valentin as a double pivot.
Okay.
Essentially two holding midfielders with Rafinha Rodrigo and Vinicius supporting Matheus Cunha in attack.
Great.
Now, on paper, that doesn't look like a weak team at all.
No, it doesn't.
Was this lack of midfield football?
Interesting.
You know, they said that Andre and Joe Valentin are good players,
Yeah.
but that pairing in the center of the pitch just didn't seem to click. They were really missing that creative midfielder who could unlock Argentina's defense and dictate the tempo.
It showed.
It really did. Describing Brazil's lineup as almost experimental, suggesting that some of those players in their life could have dreamed of playing for Brazil in such a crucial Clásico.
Wow.
He even raised serious questions about the future of coach Dorival Jr. after such a heavy and unexpected defeat.
Yeah, I can see why.
This really makes you wonder about the current state of Brazilian football at the national team level.
Yeah, for sure.
Is this just a blip, or are there deeper issues that they need to address?
Right.
A loss of this magnitude definitely puts the coaching staff under immense pressure.
Absolutely.
Also highlighted some glaring defensive errors
Yeah.
from Brazil that led directly to multiple Argentine goals.
Right.
Specifically pointed out mistakes in the build-up to Alvarez's and McAllister's goals, as well as Romero's lapse in concentration that allowed Brazil to score their solitary goal.
Oh, yeah, I remember that.
And here's a really telling statistic. This was only the second time in the entire history of South American World Cup qualifiers that Brazil has conceded 3 goals in the first half of a match.
Really?
The other time, also against Argentina.
Oh, wow.
So, that defensive fragility is deeply concerning. For a team with Brazil's reputation, those kinds of individual errors at this level are simply unacceptable.
Right.
And suggest a lack of organization and perhaps even a crisis of confidence at the back.
Yeah, potentially.
And if that wasn't enough to really paint a picture of Brazil's struggles, that they only managed a single shot on target
Wow.
throughout the entire 90 minutes.
One shot on target.
One shot.
This is unbelievable for a team like Brazil.
Right. It speaks volumes about Argentina's defensive solidity and just how ineffective Brazil's attack was on the day.
Yeah, they were totally shut down.
Now, interestingly, it seems that some pre-match comments from the Brazilian camp might have inadvertently fueled Argentina's fire.
Oh, really?
That remarks made by Brazil's Rafinha were seen by the Argentine players and seemed to provide them with more energy and motivation.
So it backfired.
Yeah, as far as to say that Rafinha committed the error of poking more than necessary at a team that was clearly superior on the day. It sounds like, a classic case of adding unnecessary pressure
Right.
and motivation to your opponent.
Yeah.
Leandro Paredes, in his interview with seemed to downplay the significance of Rafinha's words,
Okay.
suggesting that they were a little for them in media.
Right.
However, when you listen to the Argentine players in that same TNT Sports video, the recurring theme is their focus on their own performance on executing their game plan, rather than getting drawn into any of that pre-match talk.
Okay.
They clearly channeled any perceived slight into their performance on the pitch.
Right. So they let their actions speak louder than words.
Exactly. Now let's take a step back and look at the historical context of this rivalry.
Okay.
Some really fascinating head-to-head statistics.
Right.
Across all 106 senior national team Clásicos between Argentina and Brazil, Argentina now has 41 wins, scoring 160 goals,
Okay.
while Brazil has 39 wins with 155 goals, and they're in 26 draws. Historically, it's been an incredibly tight contest.
Yeah. Almost completely even.
The recent momentum is firmly with Argentina.
Yeah, it seems like it.
They're really eating Brazil's toast in every way possible lately, as he put it,
I love that.
referencing that Copa America win in Brazil,
Right.
even though it was played behind closed doors.
Yeah.
This emphatic victory in the World Cup qualifiers is just another marker in that shift.
Absolutely.
And the records broken in this single match are really quite something, as we've already mentioned. Brazil conceded 4 goals in a World Cup qualifier for the first time ever.
Yeah, that's crazy.
And Argentina became the first nation to secure 2 consecutive World Cup qualifying victories against Brazil, including that historic away win. So that's unprecedented in this fierce rivalry.
Yes, huge.
Julián Álvarez's early strike was the 3rd fastest goal ever scored in a South American World Cup qualifier, Clásico.
Whoa.
Even the speed of that goal highlights Argentina's intent
Yeah.
and Brazil's very sluggish start. And here's another statistic that really underscores Argentina's dominance in this campaign.
Okay.
This is the first time in history that Brazil has lost all 6 possible points to the same opponent
Wow.
in a single World Cup qualifying campaign.
Really?
Argentina has completed a clean sweep.
A clean sweep.
For a bit more historical perspective, the last time Brazil conceded 4 goals in a non-friendly match against a South American team was all the way back in 1987 against Chile.
Wow.
And of course, the infamous 7-1 loss to Germany in 2014 was the last time they conceded that many overall in a non-friendly context.
It really does, yeah.
So as we try to understand the why behind this dominant performance, the comments from the Argentine players keep pointing to a few key things.
Yeah.
Their unwavering focus on their own game,
Right.
the strength and unity of the team,
Okay.
a strong collective mentality, and the fact that even without key players like Messi and Lautaro, the group is resilient and very capable. There seems to be a real continuity and belief within this Argentine squad.
Yeah, really sure.
And contrast that with the feeling echoed by one of the Argentine players that Brazil is currently in a transition process with a somewhat experimental lineup
Okay.
that suggests a lack of a settled identity
Yeah.
and perhaps a period of uncertainty for the Brazilian national team.
A bit worrying for them.
It really seems like Argentina has found its rhythm and is building on their recent successes while Brazil is still searching for answers
Yeah.
and trying to integrate new players and a new tactical approach. That disparity in team stability was certainly evident on the pitch.
For sure.
Confirmed that Argentina had already secured their qualification for the next World Cup before this match even kicked off.
Right.
Yet their hunger and determination to win this Clásico was undeniable. It wasn't just about the points. It was about pride and a desire to assert their dominance against their biggest rivals.
Yeah, absolutely. This victory sends a powerful message, not just within South America, but to the rest of the footballing world.
Exactly.
Argentina, even without Messi on this occasion, proved they are a force to be reckoned with.
So as we wrap up our deep dive into this historic Argentina 4, Brazil 1 result, the key takeaways are very stark.
Yeah.
Argentina delivered a commanding performance built on tactical superiority, a dominant midfield, and standout contributions from players like Enzo Fernandez and Julián Álvarez.
They were fantastic.
Brazil, on the other hand, showed significant weaknesses in midfield and defense,
Yeah.
and struggled to create any really meaningful chances.
Yeah, I agree.
And ultimately, this wasn't just a win for Argentina. It was a historically significant thrashing that broke records and potentially signals a shift in the balance of power in South American football.
It was a huge statement.
So it leads to one final thought.
Okay.
Considering Argentina's current form, even when missing their talisman,
Yeah.
Messi,
Yeah.
and Brazil's clear struggle,
Right.
what does this result truly signify for the upcoming World Cup
Right.
and the long-term future of South American football?
Yeah, that's the question.
Could this be the moment we look back on as a definitive turning point
Wow.
in the Argentina-Brazil rivalry and a sign of Argentina's ascendancy on the global stage?
It's a question worth pondering for sure.
It is a question worth pondering.
Yeah.
Thanks for joining us on the Deep Dive.
Thanks for having me.
We'll be back soon with another deep dive into the stories making waves in the world of football.
Sounds good.